Right on time.
Right on time.
Perfect timing. Good evening. We do have a member of the Minister Alliance with us this evening. Please join us for prayer.
Please bow with me in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for our wonderful city. We thank you for the leaders that you have appointed over the city. Lord, I ask you to give them wisdom and guide and direct them. Lord, I ask you to be with each person in the community, especially our first responders, firefighters, the police, everybody that works together to make our city a beautiful place. Lord, we ask that you help us to acknowledge you and to keep our focus on you in times of trouble and times of need. We ask this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call the February 3rd, 2025 Board of Alderwomen meeting to order. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Tracy Newcomer.
Here.
Kelly Netto.
Here.
Rachel Kilmer.
Here.
Sierra McMichael.
Here.
Pam Pope.
Here.
Melissa Johnson.
Here.
And Mayor Dana Webb.
Here, thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, deletions, or continuances. We do not have any of those this evening, so we'll move on to public comments. City Clerk, do we have any?
There are none.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. These items are considered on the consent agenda so that members of the Board of Alderwomen, by unanimous consent, can designate routine items to be approved by one motion. Tonight, we have approval of the January 21st, 2025 Board of Alderwomen meeting minutes, expenditures through January 30th, 2025.
I make a motion we approve the consent agenda. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We do not have any unfinished business tonight, so we'll move on to new business. Our first item of new business, the person is not present, so we will skip over that and come back to that if that person arrives. Are they supposed to, Adam?
As far as I know.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from Landmark Studio regarding the park master plan. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor Webb, Board of Alderwomen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very great. My name is Mike McGrew. On behalf of the Landwork Studio team, just want to thank you for this opportunity to present a small presentation briefly going over the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we were contracted to provide. I actually noted in our original December proposal, we had penciled in that this day would happen on January 31st, 2025. So we got pretty close in terms of everything. So happy with that. So we were tasked to provide the first Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the city of Oak Grove. As a growing community, it's part of a larger effort in relationship to the comp plan that was provided in 2023, that one of the aspects and one of the recommendations that was made was the completion of a Parks and Recreation Master Plan. In particular, we looked at 9 locations. Some are actually in the same bounded property, but have such different aspects, such as the field house and the aquatic center inside of Ben Oak Park, that they were looked at almost as exclusive parcels, as well as the farmers market location on Broadway. So the big picture, this Park and Recreation Master Plan is that comprehensive vision for enhancing Oak Grove's park system to meet the evolving needs of the community. We went through extensive community engagement, a rigorous data analysis, and a commitment to excellence. Again, this is an extension of that comprehensive plan, and that that vision. Oak Grove is a welcoming and safe place where people and businesses plant roots and grow together, leading to an economically sound and vibrant community. How do parks fit into that vision? So this is what this document, in many ways, tries to determine and express. So we went through essentially a kind of a pyramid. We went from kind of setting up a foundation through a kickoff assessment and then building slowly over time and going actually progressively faster through the completion of this final master plan. I'm just going to go through essentially a broad review of that process, a broad overview as well as the components in the master plan, and we'll go into a little bit of detail into some of the recommendations for the park system. So we went through, at the very beginning, through a kickoff assessment with invested stakeholders, members of the Parks Board, some of yourselves as well, and try to get a fundamental understanding as to what your priorities were. This can go in many different directions. The vision of what you see your parks look like in 5 to 10 years can vary from community to community. We needed to establish that groundwork to make sure that we weren't going off in the wrong direction at the outset. And so that kickoff assessment led to an analysis that was broken up into multiple phases and community engagement efforts across 3 broad categories. This was the largest part of our whole process, was understanding the community from multiple angles. One was a level of service analysis. This was a data-based aggregation review. We have lots of both state, local, and area data sets that really kind of inform what a park system needs and what a park system lacks on these kind of tested metrics, to the extent of, having standards of percentages of square feet that are needed for every 1,000 people in the population. Looking at that over a 10-year period or a 20-year period. In this case, it was an 8-year period and an 18-year period to line up with some of the census data that we had had. And, we wanted to make sure that that was grounded in one kind of database system. Secondly was we have a multi-track system which we kind of distilled into these park analysis forms that we have in the document, where we look at a professional view of about, I think it was 63 different systems, about how good is what you have existing. The 5 core competencies were in accessibility, connectivity, comfort and character, usability, and amenities. These were all judged on the basis of parks throughout the region and where they kind of fell into that metric. We assessed strengths, opportunities, and just gave a broad description of where your parks are now. And then finally, a lot of public outreach. We did a series of in-person discussions with stakeholders. We had a statistically valid survey done by our partner at ETC Institute. We did visual engagement with a online app called Social Pinpoint. We had pop-up meetings and events. We were, in the summertime, we went out to the pool and canvassed people as they were leaving, specifically geared towards aquatic and pool facilities there. And we were at Lick Skillet Days, trying to see if we can provide a little. Actually, at the time, we were under budget, and we were like, well, we've got an opportunity to do a little bit more. And so that led to the trails component, because overwhelmingly, folks were saying that they really wanted to see something related to kind of connections from their community to the parks themselves. So that actually really led to an interesting process. I want to, in particular, highlight Oak Grove's online engagement. We had 757 responses from local residents when we asked them what their thoughts on their park system, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see improved, what they miss that we used to have, things like that. That is far and away more than many cities. We had an engagement with the city of Shawnee, Kansas, which is, I believe it's around 80,000 people, and we did not have the level of social engagement. And it's really a credit to folks who are really invested in their community, invested in their park system, to really offer those kinds of suggestions, concerns, everything like that. It was really, really a commendable moment. So from this, we developed a strategic planning assessment to further refine the goals and visions and ideas. We kind of took the stuff from the kickoff, had all this data, and we said, okay, we think this is where this is going. Is this right? Is this the direction we want to go before we really go into detail? And so once that was moved through, there was a strategic action plan. This is really the backbone of the document. It is detailed recommendations, line by line, outlining by park, phase, high-low range of costs, and area of the comprehensive plan that it really relates to. So we're always trying to ground it back to your initial efforts with the comp plan. And so from that, we kind of go into, we had 9 key recommendations that were outside of these very specific detailed parks recommendations. So I'd like to just kind of go through them quickly here. One was to enhance usability and accessibility, to improve park accessibility for all users through sidewalk and trail improvements. A lot of communities are tasked with this. It's ADA compliance. It's just the overall idea of making sure that you have access to all parts of these wonderful park systems that you have. Strengthen connectivity, develop a comprehensive trail network from the parks to the community destinations. Invest in amenities. Upgrade your existing facilities and introduce new amenities as described in the priority action plan and illustrated in the site plans. You can kind of see these are broad goals, but it really underscores the idea that you can, we need to make sure that we keep a focus whenever you're kind of debating whether you want to go on one direction or another, that you can kind of refer back to these key recommendations and say, are we really kind of adhering to these core components? Craft economically viable funding solutions balancing park improvements with trail development. We tried to be as realistic as possible with the overall budget for the park system. Even in the most aspirational ways, there were just some things that were, it just was not feasible. And so we made sure we had a grounded, practical document. We really wanted to make sure that 5, 6, 7 years from now, if any of you voluntarily retired from the position and wanted to, the next person that was there really wanted to understand the parks master plan, that they could pick it up and intuitively understand and accept these findings. We want this to be a living document. And that practicality underscores so much of what this is. So that it relates to that with a realistic financial outlays as well. Feasibility, aesthetics, completeness. A lot of these high-low ranges and these specific items, it really is on the basis of what do you really want? Where do you want to really invest in? It gives you that flexibility. If you have a park shelter, a park shelter can be a very, very simple structure, or it can be a $500,000 structure, depending on what you want. Well, if you want to make a regional draw that has a lot of people and activity and everything like that, that might be a sensible investment. Other times, obviously, a much more pared down solution that provides as much access, and maybe having 3 park shelters across the system is a far more logical way of meeting community expectations. So maintaining rural character and a growing community by preserving unprogrammed open spaces. There is a tendency in parks master plans to try and program each and every little piece. You want to fill every piece of flat ground with stuff. That was not something that folks really wanted to see. One of the big ideas is that in portions of Frick Park and Ben Oak Park, they are actually left as unprogrammed spaces, that these are spaces for folks to walk, enjoy nature, fish, do the sorts of things that folks expect in a rural community and want to, and frankly, many communities, so that they can experience and have that connection that they're anticipating when they move to a place like Oak Grove. Enhance community engagement, really look at marketing. A lot of the things that the Statistically Valid survey said is that, and this is not unusual, people thought that they didn't have something in the park system that you actually do have, And sometimes it's just a question of marketing and saying, you know, if you want to do this, you can actually, yes, you can fish here. You can, you know, you can go bike riding here. You can, you know, did you know you have an aquatic center? It's sometimes it's, you know, there's a proportion of folks that just aren't as necessarily in tune with the goings on of the Parks Department. So we've kind of developed a metric for that. Develop a template for successful future neighborhood parks. This is particularly true in the north side. You know, we don't have a lot of parks right now on the north side of I-70, but, you know, 18 years from now, whatever that number is, there wasn't really a number associated with this kind of long-term vision. We just want to make sure that you have the tools to develop a framework for future parks if need be. And then just aligned with broader city goals. You know, view this in relationship to the comprehensive plan. How does this relate to housing? How does this relate to transportation? You know, don't be afraid to kind of look at that in seeing how parks can affect your goals. So the master plan is broken into 7 different sections. The first one is, some of these are kind of related to the way that the kind of pyramid was developed, but there's, it kind of varies a little bit. So I'll go through these briefly. Initiation, it really just describes that kickoff process, where the objectives were and the essential goals. Discovery, there's a lot of data there that goes beyond what I described. You know, this is benchmarking. This looks at other communities. We looked at Kearney, Grain Valley, Oak Grove, and then Sandy, Oregon, which is actually a very similar size and location. But we wanted to kind of have a national benchmark for a number of different factors so that we can do the kind of quantitative analysis and see where you are in relation to other communities. Yeah, vision. It's just, again, establishing that clear vision, mission, and set of goals. The Parks Assessment is where that kind of fit in as well. Outreach, this really relates to that marketing component, looking at sensible solutions to improve quality of service and recreational program viability in your parks system. And then the implementation phase. And so that is where we took this strategic framework and made them into these actionable steps. So these were, or are, specific projects, timelines, and responsibilities. They're broken up by park, but there's also a general recommendations page. And yeah, each initiative, these are based on, these were identified, these items that are, these are all kind of, there's 13 general recommendations. 3 of them were considered highest priority by the community. These that are 2 are possible. If it's really a concerted effort that folks want to do stuff, it's something to kind of consider, or might be a medium-term goal. 1, 2 is kind of in that broad range, or it's just a continuing effort. And then 3 is more of an aspirational. Hey, we don't have the folks for this, like the actual number of people to really make this successful right now. But we really should just kind of outline a location in the ground so that, hey, you know, decades from now, we've got a spot and it makes a lot of sense. And so, you know, oftentimes those do have some bigger dollar signs associated with them, but they're just areas that just aren't as prioritized. And so we provide that, the general recommendation, how it relates to a guiding vision in the comp plan, and then that kind of low-high cost range. So Ben Oak, you
I'm
know,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Uh-huh.
Is that previous slide that you were on, is that in here?
No.
Yeah, I was just looking.
Yeah, where is that?
Yeah.
Right
It's in the
there.
very beginning.
That table.
You go right
Good
to the
job,
beginning
Kelly.
here.
I was looking for it.
So is that, like,
What page?
Right here, page, after key recommendations and before Ben Oak Park. It's just general recommendations.
What page number?
There are good numbers.
It's the,
Oh, that one's not numbered.
it's right before Ben Oak Park. Sorry, it's right before Ben Oak Park on the facing page.
Oh,
in the recommendations area, or implementations area?
In the implementations area, yes, strategic action plan, general
I
recommendations.
think we were all trying to find it.
There is we do have some, looks like it got cut off, the page number got cut off.
All right, find it, Kelly.
No. Go to
Here,
page
you have my book.
70 and then
Here,
go
take mine.
several pages.
Oh, I'm close?
Yeah, because you're in brown section, so go.
Yeah, go to page 70 and,
Thank
yeah, a couple pages after.
Mike, you're just going to do a general overview of each of the parks, right?
General overview, yeah.
Okay,
I'm not going to go into
perfect.
detail beyond
Yeah.
this.
There we
So,
All
yeah,
right, we're good.
okay.
Sorry about that. Thank
That's
you.
okay.
No,
I
you're fine.
understand.
We were all looking for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have general recommendations for Ben Oak Park, Caraway Lake, itemized again in the same way, the Davis Center, the Farmers Market, the focus on the Field House and Aquatic Center, Frick Park, this is rotated a little bit here for ease of vision, the skate park right outside here, Webb Park, and yeah, and so from that, our last section is the trails. So we kind of develop a system of pathways both in and between parks to enhance connections and access to all users to provide a clear, actionable way of constructing trails without needing a consistent mechanism to fund them. Oftentimes, Public Works have a sidewalk improvements, capital improvement project that's just outlaid for 5, 10, 15 years. This provides, at least from the perspective of improving quality of access for parks, a framework for Public Works to do that, as well as you can see, some of these are actually inside the park system for assessment for, or opportunities for the Parks Department to do improvements inside the parks. We use a system so you can kind of see there are some components that are well outside of the parks, but we feel that given the number of people that are in the area and the lack of maybe either poorly graded or non-existent trails, sidewalks, that the construction of sidewalks there would improve mobility. It'd let folks, in order for folks to walk, and then, if they're walking their dog, they might continue to walk and they go down to a certain park in one certain area or another. And so, finally, the appendix, just that justification and evidence of everything that had kind of been done through the main document. So before I open up to questions, I just wanted to thank everybody in the community for being extremely helpful, very open, and being so accessible. It's not always something that happens, and the input is what made this really, I think, successful in terms of really being able to provide something that was appropriate and validated, and the folks here were really exceptional. So I just want to kind of make a general commendation, not only for those that are in the stakeholders and associated interest folks, but the community at large. So thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Ladies, do you have any questions for Mike from Landworks about this park master plan? This would be the final document.
So just to be clear, so these are just like suggestions, and then who makes the decision on what ones we do, like what ones get started on first? Like, or somebody can decide, let's do the number one, tier one on Ben Oak, and then we're gonna do, like, how does it work? Like, what's that process look like?
Well, to begin with, this past year, there's $100,000 allotted for all of you, for you ladies to decide what to do with that $100,000 toward the parks. That's a budgeted line item that's been holding out there for you. I believe you wanted to, or it was recommended to wait till you got through this process to spend that money, at least for this year. Sierra, the way it works is park board meetings, they suggest things, so they'll start using this as a living document, right, at all their meetings. They'll each have a copy, and then they'll work through it. But at any time, you ladies can make a recommendation of how you want to move forward with that. I mean, I'm very hopeful, and Scott has expressed that we will start writing grants, and get matches on grants with certain things that go with this. And so it's just, as a comprehensive plan is, this is a living document and a tool and a guide. And the park board will probably start making some recommendations, but you ladies will have the final vote on the big ticketed items. Does that help?
Yeah.
Matt,
And then-
anything else with that?
And
I love how detailed this is. I feel like you guys thought of everything imaginable, but what if in the future something isn't on here that we want to do? Like, I can't think of it right now, but what about in the future if something comes up? Can we do that, or you have to only stick to the park master?
You can amend it, correct?
It's a living
This-
document,
Yeah, it's
right?
just a guide.
Just amend it.
Okay,
Not
Yeah.
like-
not like you have to.
No, this is not, it's just like comprehensive plan
Yeah.
is a living document. It's moving at all times. You know, the city may change, city may grow a different direction. Things may really grow heavy north, and then quickly you go, oh, we need to go put a park out north, or, I mean, yes. So it's just it's a living document. It's a guide. It's a tool for Scott's team to use and to not only maintain the parks, but then to start seeing some pretty exciting things could start happening. Now, they all take money,
Yeah.
you know, and as everyone knows, all of everything's a general fund. We don't have a park tax, as some cities have. So this will take time. I'm most excited about the connectivity. I was on the strategic planning team, I believe, when I first became mayor, or maybe I was still on the council, and it was unanimous that we make our city connect with sidewalks and trails. And so I may not live to see this, but man, it'll be cool.
Yeah. Well, that was number one from the thing that you guys did
Yeah.
too, so it shows everyone wants that.
There were a couple
Right.
spots that I was like, oh, there's not sidewalks in there. That's great. I
Yeah.
didn't realize it. I do have one question for you. I just wanted to clarify like your vision for the field house, because it's a little bit all over the place. Like there's a lot of things we could do with it, and it's based on like the priority 1 rankings you have: indoor basketball goals, equipment rentals. So is the vision for it to be more of a sports facility or an event venue? Like what's the?
No, there was some disagreement. I think that broadly speaking, I'm speaking out of turn, but the event space portion of it, the actual aspect of, you know, renting it out, that had a lot of success in it. We, in our initial summer work with the community, there was some interest in that, but I think that, and we wanted to document that, but we wanted to give you the opportunity to view both and see what it is. I don't want to, you know, speak at a turn, but I believe there is more of a belief that its viability as a community and event space for rentals is showing a lot of promise. And so, you know, what that looks like in terms of return on investment and everything else, you know, that can be kind of determined later. But yeah, that is one of those items that you know, we decided to place it as kind of, these are the two different processes, two different approaches that you can go to. There are a couple of other locations where it's almost an either-or opportunity, and that value judgment can be made by the Parks Board ultimately, if we feel. So it's one of those where it might be like, oh, it's a priority 2 item, but you can go one of 2 different ways on this. We try to limit that as much as possible because it's having a consistent vision and having it be a little more simple. But you know, another one was location of a dog park, right? There are a couple of locations where that could be viable. We make a recommendation in one location, but it certainly wouldn't preclude you from doing a switch and having it a slightly different location. It's, you know, again, it's a living document. These things are going to change. I mean, I said 10 years ago I didn't even know the word pickleball, and now, you know, any parks director is going to tell you that pickleball is all the craze, and so. We try to stay ahead of the trends, and we try to make sure that this is a viable document as long as possible. But for things like that, yeah, we
Do you guys get into numbers at all of, because those are 2 things that are super different and you have to like finish it differently, you know? So are we putting up drywall or are we putting up basketball goals?
Right.
Because, and then both things are in theory a money-making venture. So do you guys have like formulas you can run to see like what's better ROI, or like, I mean, is that part of what you guys are doing with this? Or no?
That is one thing, because of that interior component it's really was the only interior component. That cost to get somebody in to do that one ROI was one of those that we decided to take out of our proposal, because it's one of the things where if you really want to make that kind of investment, it's probably best to look at that
Just that specific.
and that specific one thing, because it's such a large component that can be modified in one of two different ways. We try to put a range on some of those things, but again, interior improvements, that can be, that can be a 5-figure number, that can be a 7-figure number, depending on what your overall goals. That's not what anybody, I don't want to say that last number is any kind of recommendation. That's just a broad, for instance, a general terminology. That's not a recommendation. It's just the fact of how much that can really vary. And so, we just want to make sure that we get that empowerment brief on that. So,
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So you're leaving that heated debate up to us then.
Well-
Thank you.
Has been for years. Yeah. Well, I think one of the most important parts of all of it is that we got the voice from an outside, company and from our community, with the SharePoint and things like that. It's not just, someone can say 25 years from now, why did these 6 women decide to do 25,000 things in our parks? It's the voice of our community. And so now we need to listen and choose wisely of
Yeah.
next steps.
I mean, it's helpful to have like tangible black and white things to work on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
I think you also said in the meeting, like, some of these things could be things park people can do, like, depending, and then the grants and stuff too.
Sure.
So it's like, I guess it's hard to put a money to it because you don't really know how much something will cost.
I had a couple things I wanted to say if I could.
Absolutely.
First of all, I was, this may seem silly, but I was glad to see that the age range of the responses was so equal.
Yes, I noticed
So
that.
we knew what each age group thought, I think. I am very excited about the prairie grass thing, personally, the natural prairies, but very, very curious about how the marketing manager is ranked so high.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the biggest discrepancy in terms of the statistically valid survey of the things that led to, why do people not like parks, for example? What's the low-hanging fruit of the kind of things that to try and improve people's perceptions of the Parks Department? It's not an unpopular part. This is, very rarely, because you're providing good quality service, that you have, you've got a good approval of the park system. But the one thing where you can really see that change is providing a consistent vision for marketing and branding and letting folks know exactly when things are, where things are, and what is occurring there. We put it into a kind of I think it was more of a part-time role, but there's an opportunity to have that as a full-time role. I think that's kind of more of what was a suggestion on that. But it was elevated because, again, folks didn't know when things were happening or thought things weren't occurring. And so by doing that, you can probably, it tends to enhance the number of people that use the recreation programs and how they perceive it and saying, well, I'm not going to do that, but I'm glad to know that that's occurring in my community, and that, that they know that if their kids come and their grandkids are big into community basketball or something like that, that there's actually events that are going on. Like I said, it's one of those where it can really make a unique difference. So,
Remember, Pam, it's a recommendation.
I have a follow-up question. I have 2 figures out so I don't forget. One is, the mention of the marketing manager in there, I liked the line that was like, so Kansas City's expecting 650,000 visitors for the World Cup. How do we get 21,000 of them to Oak Grove? And we don't really have someone, I don't think, in the city whose like job title is like, think about those things and figure out how to get them here. And like, is that a parks person? Is it not? I don't know, just like food for thought for us. But the real question I had was, did you audit the Parks Department, like job descriptions and like, this person should really be focusing on this and that person really focusing on that? Did you guys get into that at all?
We looked at the operations manager in terms of the operational roles of each person and the equipment. We didn't want to get into what we really were suggesting was, a change to the maintenance protocol, that certain allocations that are done towards mowing, say Bannock Park, and Frick Park and portions of actually Webb Park, that if it's changed to a native, prairie solution, that's a twice-a-year mowing. And so what does that free up? It's not, you don't have an excess of labor. I mean, I don't think anybody does right now. So what it does is it affords those folks who are currently doing, certain things on that program to be able to do other maintenance aspects, improvements, some of the allocations for the trail system, some of the grading and some of those simpler tasks that you can kind of do beforehand. That kind of allocation could be done, it could be shifted around, so that it's more task oriented. The overall structure, I mean, it's not. We didn't make any major recommendations because, to be frank, the structure was very compact. There's when we did Kansas City, Missouri's Parks and Rec Master Plan, it was a major undertaking to determine all of those aspects. But even then, we tried to make sure it was as general as possible. And so, we did in terms of the actual task, but in terms of actually assessing each and every individual person's roles and responsibilities, it was really that, and then saying, ensure you have at least somebody that's focused at least part-time on that marketing manager component, because those were the critical ones.
Yeah. And just a question, it may not be for you, but is there anywhere on our website that our parks that shows everything that we have in the park? Sorry, I haven't looked at our website in a while, but does it say Ben Oak and it says, here's all the things that Ben Oak has? Is it super visual friendly, easy for the community to go to and be like, or search bar, dog park? No, we don't have dog parks.
Right.
Basketball courts, and then it shows the parks that have basketball courts. Like, I'm just,
So we do have all that on there. But I will say that through this discussion with the Landworks, we did recognize that the shortfalls that we had with the marketing. And so we've been holding off until this is improved. And an example I can give you is the playground at Webb Park. We've all known about that for a long time. We've done it like traditional, right, where it wasn't released a lot of information to the public. Somebody just randomly gets on Facebook, states something. Even though it's already out there, it shows, and if we would have jumped on it as soon as we talked, you wouldn't have seen this example. But our goal from now on, after this is adopted, to weekly have updates that you'll see something change through social media. And if we have to branch farther out than social media, we'll do that. In the past, we've done an annual magazine that went out that was a park rec guide. Pros and cons to that. We stopped it for cost, and at that time, a lot more people were on social media than the magazine. But we can talk about that as time goes on, and we can self-evaluate, as well as if you guys think we're not doing a very good job on the marketing, we want to know that so we can make improvements and then recommendations to use, like if we need to bring that guide back. But my example to the playground, if we had done proper marketing, the person would have already known that playground was coming in. They would have seen the new playground that's going to go in its place. And so once this is adopted, I'm hoping that we will take care of that, as well as helping with the little leagues, promoting the leagues, how to sign up, when those signups occur, who it is, and just really flood it with information so people have it. And that's through all aspects of the park, as well as the Davis Center and other activities.
yeah, that's good. I think if that was one of the biggest complaints, it would be good to focus on that a little bit, but obviously looking into how much time that takes, and
I love the signs
somebody can do that.
around the playground. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, why didn't we think about that?
Isn't the
sooner? Like,
majority of people in Oak Grove, over 50? Was that what that was? Not that over 50 means that you prefer things in the mail. I'm just saying,
I'm all
They might
digital,
not prefer-
Sierra. Look at me. I'm all digital.
just-
It's okay.
I'm sure everyone loves social media, but I also love something in the mail too. I'm sure people that don't like
This
social media,
old
but
person always kept her Parks Department.
yeah.
I did.
I love my Missouri conservationists.
It might be something we do on a
yes.
smaller scale on that rec guide, because I do know that new homeowners, when they came into City Hall, it was very nice to hand them the rec guide, and they were able to see everything, know who to call. So it might be something that, whether it's just a smaller version that we send off for print, but that would help.
And maybe we can direct
Cost
to
of
the
that.
website, more.
Yes,
than-
right.
Yeah. Little QR code on it.
Anything else?
I had a
Sure.
couple
What do you
things
have?
I wanted to say.
Yeah.
We talked about easy wins when we met with the park board and your priority ones. And one thing I really wanted to emphasize was wayfinding and the signage all kind of aligning really well. I think it already kind of does.
Kind of.
But people with disabilities, that really does help them. I worked for the Institute for Human Development, and that by far is one of the things that helps people with disabilities is wayfinding and just streamlining that so everything kind of looks the same. And that could be an easy win from the get-go, so I just wanted to highlight that. You were talking about the paper form, and universal design for learning is something that teachers teach, and as a professor, like having different ways of getting the information out there, not just committing to the internet. And just like what you were saying, just having a smaller batch print pile that could be available at the Davis Center or the library or here, that would be a great, I'd already written that down when you were talking about it, so I agree with that. And I also wanted to highlight something totally separate, which is national trends. We didn't talk about that in reference to your data, is that the baby boomers are getting older, so Davis Center may need to expand what it's offering, and people are having less babies. So we also may need to think in those terms as well going forward. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Grace? Nothing? All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
thank you.
Giving
Thank
us
you.
something that we can take back and thumb through
It's
as
lovely.
well.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you for giving
It
us
was, it was our pleasure.
In the future.
so good.
Do they need to make a motion to adopt it?
We'll bring back a resolution.
You
so
will?
we can-
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
to have this be adopted by resolution. Part of this was wanted, to ensure that you all saw this. I know we had the joint meeting, but since this was the final document, to have a look at it and make any suggested changes back to Mike. We are kind of towards the end here of our contract, but I'm sure they could make some changes if need be, and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Or if you guys would like further time to review this, it could be the meeting after that to adopt the master plan by resolution.
What do you ladies think? You're good? Good to go. Good to go? Pam? You hesitated.
It's okay.
Okay.
I want to review it more, but that's just because I couldn't read it all
Sure.
in the
And yeah, you have a
screen, but
paper
that doesn't-
copy.
But we're not voting on it tonight,
No.
so that's okay.
No, my bad, presentation only. Yeah, all right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action for Bill Number 25-01 regarding an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute the right-of-ways to the use agreement for Bluebird Network LLC. Do I have to execute for another internet company to come in our town?
Why would you not?
Yes.
Well, they tear up yards, so that's my only thing. Lots of calls.
Yes, so this is another, an ordinance for a right-of-way agreement with Bluebird Network. They've requested consent from the city to use the city's public right-of-way to construct, install, and operate and maintain fiber optic communication facilities. By state statute, we do have to allow fiber companies to utilize our right-of-way. We can, however, have them do certain things, which is why we have a standard agreement. By state statute, we also have to be fair and equitable in the treatment of like utilities.
Yes.
The city currently has agreements with Clearwave, Brightspeed, and Socket for a right-of-way agreement. The ordinance and agreement attached in your packet is consistent and substantially the same as those prior three agreements. It has been reviewed by the city's attorney's office as well as Bluebird's Network legal team and has been agreed upon. In fact, they've actually already signed in anticipation of approval. They've already gave us a signed copy back from Bluebird. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
And they're already in town, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
at the library?
So, yeah, Bluebird may sound familiar to you. They came down Broadway. Since that's MoDOT right-of-way, they didn't have to get permission from us. They had an agreement with Mid-Continent Public Library to wire up their libraries, and so they came down I-70, down Broadway, and came over from there. And now, since they're on Broadway, they're wanting to do some branches off of Broadway, but that would require our public utility. So they do have one pending permit, which is to go up 13th Street to connect a fiber connection to the cell tower up at Frick Park. So that cell tower company wants faster internet speeds than what they currently have, and so Bluebird is wanting to install that network. So that's primarily why they need the right-of-way agreement. They've not yet indicated whether or not they intend to go further out and do commercial or residential
Have
service.
any of these other companies opened up to homes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Socket and
Socket.
Brightspeed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Denver.
Clearwave,
Must not be mine.
they have not come in for permits yet. I think the other two companies, it's just me, I think they beat them to the market, and they've not come in yet for permits.
Okay. It's an ordinance.
I move for first and second reading by title only of bill number 25-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the first and second reading of the proposed ordinance by title only of bill number 25-01. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. City Clerk, would you please read the full title of the bill 2 times?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a rights-of-way use agreement with Bluebird Network LLC. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a rights-of-way use agreement with Bluebird Network LLC.
I move for adoption of bill number 25-01.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the adoption of bill number 25-01 to ordinance. Any discussion? If not, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Tracy Newcomer,
Yes.
Kelly Netto,
Yes.
Rachel Kilmer,
Yes.
Sierra McMichael,
Yes.
Pam Pope,
Yes.
Melissa Johnson.
Yes.
The motion is approved, and the bill number 2501 becomes ordinance number 2128 and is adopted. The next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the sale of surplus property. Corey?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the city has just 4 items we would like to post on GovDeals. A couple of the items, the first 2 listed are parks trucks, as mentioned at prior board meetings. You have any questions on those, I'm sure Scott would be happy to answer those, but they are in our possession to list. A conference table located at City Hall. We're trying to clear out, make some room for a plan review table, and it's just taking up space. And then a 2006 street saw, concrete saw, just an old saw that has been kind of laying around, needs to go. So it was replaced 5 years ago by a newer model. So other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions, ladies?
I think Corey has all the other surplus property sold that seems like we've done this several times.
Yes, ma'am. Everything does sell and has sold.
Okay.
I can't recall anything over the last couple of years that hasn't sold.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
just wondered if we still had stuff sitting
Yep.
around.
We'll probably do it a lot more time. It's
good
kind of an
question.
ongoing thing.
Motion, yeah.
I make a motion to approve the sale of surplus property. Did I get all of them all out? No? Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second regarding the sale of surplus property. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is information reports. Mr. Randall, do you have one?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mark?
No report, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Chief?
No report, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Corey?
No report, thank you.
Kim?
No report.
Chris?
Same here.
Scott?
Reason to stop.
Wow. Rachel?
No report.
Kelly?
Go Chiefs, Super Bowl
There
this
you
Sunday.
go. Melissa?
No, thank you.
Sierra?
No report.
Tracy?
No report.
Pam?
No report.
I just want to say that the Chamber did an outstanding job at their gala last weekend. We really enjoyed ourselves, and our police department was awarded the Citizens of the Year. So congratulations to Chief, Captain, and all of our officers. Well done. I'm looking for a motion for, yeah, you can clap, go ahead. Sierra. I'm looking for a motion for executive session, please.
I make a motion, we adjourn to, oh, I need to know. which
Yeah,
one.
I was just like,
Here you go.
Executive session, let's see, 610.021.
Who seconded?
second,
12.
Oh, I need the other
12,
numbers.
Sorry, 12, RSMO.
There you go.
second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn to executive session 610.02112. Any discussion? If not, City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Tracy Newcomer,
Yes.
Kelly Netto,
Yes.
Rachel Kilmer,
Yes.
Sierra McMichael.
Yes.
Pam Pope,
Yes.
and Melissa Johnson.
Yes.
We are adjourned to executive session.